This is Air Force One. And what might be on board might surprise you. Akin to being the Oval Office in the sky, this plane is a one-of-a-kind aircraft. But despite all the various bells and whistles on it that make Air Force One so technologically advanced and unique in the aviation world, there is another contender that is neck and neck with the US. Purposefully made to carry Russia's president, this plane is the closest equivalent to Air Force One in the world. But how do they compare? And more importantly, which one is better? Whenever the US president needs to travel by air, he is ferried by an aircraft known as Air Force One. While this call sign can actually be used for any aircraft flying the president, it is colloquially understood to reference the two giant Boeing 747s the president can ride in. Although based on the Boeing 747, the purposefully built planes are known by their military moniker of the VC-25, since they're owned and operated by the U.S. Air Force. These two planes first entered service in the late 80s and are absolute beasts. With a length of just over 231 feet, a height of 63.5 feet, and a wingspan of almost 197 feet, the VC-25 is a very large aircraft. Combined with the fact that its max takeoff weight is 833,000 pounds, this aircraft needs some very powerful engines. And boy, does it! 4 General Electric CF6 turbofan engines are propelling this beast through the air. With the ability of each engine to generate 56,700 foot-pounds of force, the VC-25 is incredibly fast for an aircraft its size, with the ability to reach speeds of 0.92 Mach, almost breaking the sound barrier. But that's not all the VC-25 can do. While over 100 people usually ride Air Force One at any given time, this is still far less than normal. Because of this, the aircraft can carry a lot more fuel thanks to less weight and modified fuel tanks. As a result, the VC-25 can fly up to 7,800 miles before needing fuel. And this plane doesn't even have to stop for gas. But how? Thanks to the VC-25's ability to aerial refuel, the plane's ability to stay airborne is really only limited by food and how long the president wants to stay in the sky. Because of this, the aircraft can fly practically anywhere in the world. But how does this stack up against Vladimir Putin's plane? In Russia, the presidential aircraft is called Plane Number 1. The plane chosen for this special duty is the Ilyushin Tu-96-300PU. The Tu-96 was meant to be a replacement for a troubled commercial airliner. However, with the collapse of the Soviet Union, only a handful of aircraft were ever originally built. Despite not doing well on the international commercial air market, the Russian government embraced this relic of the Soviet Union as the presidential aircraft, first under Boris Yeltsin with a few modifications. While the Tu-96 has just a slightly longer wingspan at 197.25 feet, it is significantly shorter than its American counterpart at 181.5 feet. In addition to being shorter, Putin's plane is also much more underpowered. Powering the Tu-96 are 4 Aviat Vigatel PS-90 turbofans that generate about 35,000 foot-pounds of thrust each. Compared to Air Force One, this equates to about 60% less thrust and nearly 300,000 pounds less for its maximum takeoff weight. Additionally, due to having underpowered engines, the Tu-96 is also slightly slower than the VC-25 at 0.82 Mach for its max speed. However, the Tu-96 is rumored to have a slight performance advantage. According to unverified sources, the Tu-96 has a max range of nearly 14,000 kilometers, which is about 2,000 more kilometers than the VC-25's range. However, with the inability to refuel in flight, Putin would need to land while President Biden could stay airborne. But despite the VC-25 beating out the Tu-96 in many key metrics, how do they look on the inside? When first seen from the outside, Air Force One may look impressive, but stepping inside is a whole other world. First, to get on the plane, there are 2 ramps. The primary one in the front is for the president and his family, while the rear gangway is for all the support staff, security, and press. But for the sake of demonstration, let's look at it through President Biden's point of view. Once the president steps onto the plane, he is immediately inside a long hallway. Turning the corner, he finds himself in the center dining room. Here, there are enough seats to serve over 100 staff, crew, and guests. The menu is selected by the president, and chefs in 2 kitchens that flank each end of the dining room prepare exquisite meals with the freshest ingredients available. Moving past the dining room, there is a passenger area that looks very familiar, like one would see on a commercial airliner. Here, members of the press, extra staff, and security take their seats. Interspersed throughout the aircraft's rear are also small conference rooms and offices with computers, phones, and TVs. In total, there are 85 phone lines and 19 TVs on board Air Force One. Once President Biden finishes checking out the rear of the airplane, he can start heading towards what is known as the Oval Office in the sky. While not as big or beautiful as the Oval Office, the presidential suite on board Air Force One is very roomy. With a large office, the president can meet with other politicians, dignitaries, and distinguished guests. After finishing his meetings, President Biden can retire to his room where he has a full-size bed, a walk-in shower. Additionally, there is a fully stocked operating room in the front that is staffed by a doctor and nurse on every flight in case of emergency. But how does the inside of Putin's plane compare to this? While Putin's plane is much smaller than Air Force One, his fleet of 5 Tu-96 planes are quite opulent. Once inside the plane, there's a larger center dining room with numerous office spaces like the VC-25. However, the main difference is in the decorations. While the inside of Air Force One is more subdued and modest, based on Nancy Reagan's designs, the inside of each of Putin's planes is extravagant. All along the inside of the Tu-96 are expertly hand-carved panelings that show scenes of Russian folklore. Additionally, everything is edged with pure gold, like the tapestries and edging along the walls. There is also rare art hung throughout that makes the plane look more like a museum than a presidential workspace. Besides the over-the-top decorations, the aircraft has similar features to the VC-25, including numerous bathrooms, a large office space for President Putin, a fully staffed operating room, and a king-size bed in Putin's own bedroom. However, unlike the VC-25, the Tu-96 has one kitchen. This kitchen only serves prepackaged meals, and Putin has voiced his disdain for this numerous times. But despite not having the gourmet food Putin wants, how does the Tu-96 compare with how the VC-25 operates? During routine flight operations, both the VC-25 and the Tu-96 have similar protocols. For example, both presidents travel with at least 2 aircraft. This serves 2 purposes. For one, because of the huge entourage that follows the president everywhere he goes, there are a lot more people that need to be moved that can fit on just one of either aircraft. Because of this, less important staff and guests will travel on the following aircraft. The second reason for always traveling with 2 planes is if one plane breaks down, the president needs a secure ride back to where he's going. And for those that don't think this cannot happen, it did happen to Putin in 2005 when the brakes failed on one of his planes, where he then had to take the spare one home. Another way that both operate the same is that each has fighter escorts wherever it flies. Though this might seem like overkill, it's actually standard practice for heads of state to travel with fighter escorts to deter anyone from getting any bright ideas about the president. However, the 2 countries do have some differences in how they travel. For the U.S., because of the amount of stuff that travels with the president, several cargo airplanes regularly join this aerial convoy that helps ferry the vehicles the president needs in his motorcades. As for Putin, there will always be a 3rd aircraft that flies ahead of the 2 that he could be riding on. The reason for this is that so an advanced party of security personnel can secure the airport where Putin is going to land. Also on board are specially vetted aircraft mechanics who are the only people allowed to work on Putin's aircraft, probably due to fear of sabotage from his enemies. But what can these airplanes do during times of emergencies? Because each airplane is meant to serve as an airborne command post, both the VC-25 and the Tu-96 have enough communications equipment to continue governing their respective countries from the air in the event of a nuclear war. In addition, all of the electronics and cabling on both aircraft are hardened to defend against both radiation and electromagnetic pulses from an EMP attack. Besides defense measures, the VC-25 is known to have flares, chaff, and other passive defense measures against missiles. While it is unknown if either jumbo jet is armed, this certainly could be possible, but not likely considering the armed escorts that follow each one. It is unclear which one might fare better during a crisis like a nuclear war. Both are highly capable aircraft with robust defense measures and communications gear, enabling their president to continue fighting the war from the sky. However, due to the VC-25 being much larger and able to refuel, this would certainly be the better choice in a time of uncertainty. However, Putin's plan also has some uncertainties based on current events in Ukraine. But how? While the U.S. president enjoys freedom of movement virtually anywhere in the world due to its long list of friends, President Putin cannot travel anywhere he wants, even in his plane. But why? Just after the full-scale invasion of Ukraine happened, more than 36 countries, including the U.S., Canada, most of Europe, and others, banned all Russian aircraft from overflying their airspace as part of the wave of sanctions that hit Russia. In addition to these sanctions, once the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant for Putin last year over his forced deportation of Ukrainian children, Putin also faces another problem. While Vladimir Putin is not banned per se from the 124 countries that are party to the Rome Statute that incorporates the ICC, he probably should not go there either, because of his outstanding arrest warrant. Any country Putin visits that is party to the Rome Statute is obligated to arrest him. So what is Putin supposed to do? Though Putin does not fear arrest too much, he does fear going toe-to-toe with some of his enemies. Because of this, depending on where he wanted to go, he would have to use some forethought in how he went there. For example, if he wanted to visit the Kaliningrad enclave next to Poland, he would have to take a long, circuitous route through the Baltic Sea instead of a straight shot through Poland. So with that being said, which plane is better? Overall, notwithstanding Putin's travel restrictions, Air Force One is simply better. It is bigger, faster, can carry more fuel, and can carry more people and things inside, along with being able to aerially fuel. The VC-25 is leagues ahead of Putin's Soviet dinosaur. Bye for now.